Hello guys, my name is Kishan and today we are going to talk about reference cursors in Oracle PLSQL. I have created a separate video on static cursors. If you want to get familiar with cursors, then I would suggest you to have a look at that video first and then come on to this one. If you're already familiar with cursors, then here we start. So what are reference cursors? How are they different from static cursor? What advantage do they give us? We are going to talk about all of that, and at the end I'm going to show some demonstrations on reference cursors. So what is reference cursor, where it is used? We'll just look at all that. But basically, reference cursors are one of the most powerful, flexible and scalable ways to return query results from an Oracle database to a client application. By here client application we mean any Java.NET application. So say suppose you want to return a data set from your database to your calling application, or you want to just return a data set from one procedure to another procedure, or function to procedure, or that way you will use reference cursors. Now why reference cursors? See, if you remember, we can't do this with static cursors. Static cursors cannot be sent out in an out parameter. Also static cursors are very static in their declaration, but you get some more advantages with reference cursors. So a reference cursor is a PLSQL data type whose value is the memory address of a query work area on a database. So in other words, it's a pointer or handle to a cursor or to the result set on the database. Okay. Now when we working with reference cursors, we might just open a reference cursor in one procedure or a function on a PLSQL block, and then it is sent as an out parameter to another function, okay, or a procedure, and then we fetch the result in another environment or another function. So when you are fetching, the fetch is actually when the data is retrieved. Okay, when you open, it is just a memory location. As we know, it is just a pointer or a handle to the memory location, so it does not actually catch the data at that time. It is the fetch where the data is fetched. I want this to be clear that in reference cursor, at the fetch phase, the data is actually fetched. So let me just clear out some things between cursor and a reference cursor. See, on the right hand side, the green diagram that you see, that is an open, fetch and close of a simple cursor, simple PLSQL cursor. You open the cursor, you fetch the records, you close it. Everything happens in a single environment, okay? But whereas in a reference cursor, you might open the cursor in one particular environment, or say in a procedure, then you might just throw the away for the reference cursor as an out parameter, which will be then called by another function or procedure. So might fetch record over there, then send it back to get closed, or just closed it in the later function procedure. So this added benefit that you are getting over here, you never got with simple cursors. So this is basically how reference cursor will work. You will open them in your PLSQL block and send it as an out parameter to another function procedure or a client application or Java or .NET, which will then fetch the results. So it is a good way of throwing the result sets from Oracle database to the calling application, or from one function procedure to another one. So how to use them? So basically, reference cursor is a type declaration. So you will do something like type name is a reference cursor. So right now you have just declared the type, that this type is a reference cursor, and then you will declare a variable of that type. So that will be like variable and type name. We have two type of reference cursor available, weakly typed and strongly typed. When there is no return type, any specific return type of a reference cursor, it is weakly typed. But when you have a return type, then it is a strongly typed reference cursor. What it does is, like, a reference cursor is dynamic in its definition. Say for a particular condition, you can have a reference cursor like select star from employees. For other, you can have like select star from departments. So the definitions change, so your record set would change. From an employees table, you will get employee ID, first name, last name, and all those details. From a department table, you will get department ID and department name and that kind of information. So when you fetch that information, you are going to return it, right? So if you declare a return clause, and if you make your reference cursor strongly by a return clause strongly typed, then you are bounded to open only that kind of SQL query which satisfies your return clause. If you don't have it, is more flexible, but it is more error prone. If it is strongly typed, it is less flexible, but again less error prone. I'll just show those things with an example. Now from Oracle 9i we get something called a sys reference cursor type. People get confused between reference cursor and sys reference cursor. See, if over here when you are working with normal reference cursor type, you need to first declare a type and then the variable for that type, right? So Oracle just declared a type for it for us, which is known as sys reference cursor. So all you need to do now is just write variable name sys reference cursor, and Oracle understands that okay, it is a reference cursor type. No need to write two statements. It's just writing like variable and sys reference cursor, which is nothing same like type name is reference cursor, and then declaring a variable of that type. So this is what sys reference cursors are. They are system defined or predefined reference cursor type that Oracle has given us. Now there is a very interesting thing why this is required. Say you want to just throw a block of element from one function to a procedure or a function to a function, okay, and if you have out parameters and you want to say that okay, my out parameter is a reference cursor type, so where are you going to get the type from? You cannot declare reference cursor at the system level, at the database level, or at the package level. They need to be in a PLSQL block or a function or procedure. So there's no way of declaring them outside that scope. So how can you give an out type of a reference cursor if there is no predefined type over there? So I guess that is the basic reason that this is reference cursor type was introduced, so that instead of just declaring a reference cursor first and then a variable and then writing a function inside that block to throw that outside was a bit difficult to perform. I'll just show all this with an example, a very simple example over here. Before getting into sys reference cursor, I'll just hop into my SQL developer, connect as HR, and I'll show how simply you can declare a reference cursor type, a variable to it, and how it can work. Okay, so I'll just write set server output on so that I can see the RDBMS outputs and all the output queries. Okay, I do a declare, I do a begin and an end, all three together first of all. And now what are we going to do is we'll do a reference cursor type and variable declaration. How to do it? Just type, give a type name, say employees reference cursor type, okay, is reference cursor. So this is my type declaration done. Okay, and I'll just give it CUR. So this is the type declaration done. Now I have to declare a variable of this type. My variable will be EMP record, right? It will be this type of reference cursor. So this is the declaration of reference cursor and a reference cursor type and a variable to it. As simple as this. Type name is reference cursor and then a variable with that very type that we declared. Okay, so now say suppose I am getting the output of a complete employees table, so I need to hold it somewhere, right? So I need a variable to hold that output, and that would be what do you think could be useful in this case? I would say a row type, right? A row type will give me the complete definition of the table, all the columns, and also if the definition changes, there's no need for me to change my code, so that would be great. So I'll just give a holder, the variable that will hold the output of this cursor. Let me say like employee output, okay, and this will be employees table dot row type. It's not dot, but it's percentage row type. Okay, so these two things are done. Now what I'll do is I'll write, and now comes the cursor statement, like how we write the cursor. We write cursor like cursor name is and the query, right? Select star from employees. So how we do it in reference cursor is like instead of doing it this way, we'll write over here open for statement. So open this cursor variable, so open EMP record for what? Select star from employees. Okay, this way. So I'll just get into a more complicated thing of this, but in a minute. So I just open the select star from employees over there, and I'll get the cursor variable will be open over here. Now what we do is we do a fetch. So we will fetch this employee record into the variable that we just declared. So this all data will be fetched into emp output, right? And I don't want the fetch every just one fetch. I want all the fetches, so I'll put a loop and end loop. So if you have a loop, you need to have an exit when. So when do I want this loop to exit is like when I don't find any uh, data for this cursors. So percentage not found, right? So this will percentage not found will be true when there is no data for this emp record cursor type. If you want to know about more of these cursor variables, do look at my videos of simple cursor. I have explained all of this over there. Okay, and I'll just do a dbms output. Dbms output dot put underscore line. Great. I'll take the output dot employee id, and what else do we need? Let me take just first name, right? Enough two things. Just I want to have an output. Okay, over here it is done. Everything seems okay. So after a begin, after an open and fetch, we need to just close the cursor, right? So close the cursor at the end, execute it, and as you see, I have all the output over here, all the 107 records from the employees table. I have the employee ID, a space character, and then the first name. Okay, so what I did is I used a reference cursor, not a simple cursor over here to perform this. Now say why would I use a reference cursor? Say it could be achieved from a static cursor also, right? Yeah, it could have been achieved from the static cursor also, but now can we achieve this from a static cursor? Say I want a conditional output, like if say I'll take a variable, okay, variable called as what will name it, like say variable 1, okay, with the number data type. And if this variable 1 is 1, then I want a particular query to execute, otherwise I want a different one. What I mean by this is, if variable 1 is, say I'm giving it 1 over here, but I have just written an open statement over here, right? Open emp for select star from employees. Now if I say like, if my this variable 1 is, say, whatever condition we can give, if say it is equal to 1, then do something like this, or else if my variable equals to 2, then select star from employees but not all the records, take only where department ID is equal to 90. Here I can say where employee ID is equal to, say, 100. So these are totally two different queries. I'll just end this, and if see, these are two totally different queries. Here I am taking select star from employees where employee ID is equal to 100, otherwise say department ID is equal to 90. Two totally different statements from each other, but I can use the same reference cursor type and variable to work with any of them depending on my situation, depending on my if clause. Okay, so say suppose if this is 2 over here, and I'll execute this, I just missed something, I guess. Yeah, I just missed select star. Where did I miss in something? If yes, I don't have an open for statement over here, so this open for statement goes here. And now if we execute this, as we can see, I got an output of 100, Steven 101, Nina 102 legs, because my variable 1 is set to 2. So the second query, this one is executed. If my variable 1 is set to 1, my first query will be executed. So I'm using the same reference cursor type and variable to get the cursor to decide dynamically on what will be my select statement. So it's like dynamic decision on cursors, like dynamic cursors, where you are not using a static cursor which would always be bound to a single statement, but multiple if conditions are there, and conditionally you are selecting for what kind of this cursor will be opened and used. So this you can't do with static cursors, you can do with reference cursors. This is one of the benefit. The other benefit is, like, as we all know, returning the data set. Now we'll look at one of the examples on that also. What I'll do is I'll create a procedure, first procedure, where I will open the cursor, and then I'll create another procedure which will call the first procedure, and then the second procedure would fetch and close the cursor. Okay, sounds good. So we'll start. I'll do like create or replace p get emp details. Okay, I have two inputs to this. Create or replace what? Procedure. Create or replace procedure. The procedure name, it will have one input parameter and one output parameter. Let me take department ID as number, that is input. No need to write in because it is already by default. Now an output parameter. My output parameter will be p, say p cursor, which is an output parameter with a data type of sys, and then a reference cursor. So over here I am using the Oracle predefined reference cursor type, that is sys reference cursor. So no need for me to, what we did over here. We declared first type. As you can see, first I declared a type over here, and then I went for a variable declaration and then used it everywhere, this variable that I declared. But over here I'm just using by default the Oracle defined sys reference cursor type. So it is understood that this p cursor is a variable to a type of reference cursor. So this is the benefit you get. No need to do a declaration or anything, just simply I can use it. Okay, you can write is begin and end block. What I'll do is I'll open p cursor for a select statement. It will be like select star from employees where department ID is equal to the input whatever is given. Okay, over here. So let me not take all the variables, let's just take two of them. Let's take employee ID and first name. It's just an example, we don't need so much of data. Okay, so I'll do a create or replace procedure name. It has one input parameter and one sys reference cursor output parameter. Okay, execute it. See, you can see the procedure is compiled without any errors, right? So now I'll call another procedure which would call this. Okay, so create or replace procedure p print data, just simple as that. Print data. It will have an input parameter of the department ID, which will be then passed on to the next procedure. The calling procedure is begin and end, right? So what would I need in this? First of all, I'll be calling this procedure, this very procedure. So I'll have a call of this procedure as simple as this one. I'll just pass whatever is passed here as a department ID over here. But now the second thing is I have sys reference cursor as an out parameter, so I need to have a variable that would catch the data. It's nothing like it. I can say simply like p employees cursor with sys ref cursor type. If not this way, then you can do something like first a type declaration, like type reference cursor is reference cursor, and then now give p emp cursor is this type, reference cursor type. Both are one the same. You can perform any of that as you like it. You need to write two statements over here. Here it is done a single one. Okay, so I will just give this placeholder over here, so it will catch the data that is returned from that. Okay, so now I need variables to sort the output of whatever is returned by this cursor. So I have two, just employee ID and name. So I can take PEMP ID, which is employees table dot employee ID percentage type, and then the other one will be like employee name which is again the employees table and first name type, right? First name percentage type. Great. So what I'll do now is I'll fetch the record of this output over here into two different variables, this very variables and employee name. Okay, so there might be multiple records. So what I'll do is I'll loop it out, loop and loop. Now as we discussed before, if there is a loop, we need to have an exit. When do we exit? When we don't find any data. So percentage not found. Okay, and now just simple dbms output dot put underscore line. Here I'll just print whatever I get. Okay, I'll just print this along with employee ID along with the name. Yeah, so all of this, I just create a simple procedure with a department ID as input, and then I have a reference cursor type declaration, then a variable declaration of that type. There's no need for an is here, this is wrong. So type name is reference cursor, and this type declaration, a variable declaration of that type. I need two variables to hold the data of the output of the cursor. Okay, I call this very first procedure over here. I pass on the department ID and I put a placeholder to catch the reference cursor, the reference cursor variable. Okay, so I have this one declared over here, and then I fetch the data of the reference cursor into two different variables. I loop it out, I exit when the data is not there, and just print it on the screen. Looks good. Let me execute this. As we can see, the data is compiled. Now what I'll do is I'll just call this procedure from a symbol standalone. I don't even require a PLSQL block. I can just write ex, execute the procedure name, the output. Let me take data for what? Let's say department ID 90 and execute it. As you can see, what happened is, first of all, this procedure, second procedure I executed. So what happened is it declared this variables and all, then it came to begin block, it called the very first procedure got called where the cursor is opened, and this open cursor is then sent as an out parameter. Okay, so this procedure, the first procedure is called in the second one. So whatever comes in this out parameter is caught in this reference cursor variable, and then it is fetched. The data is actually fetched in the second procedure, looped out in the second procedure, and I forgot to close it. You need to close it in the second procedure only. So there should be a close also here. Okay, when you open it, you just close it. Close cursor name is enough. So this is how it works. I have two procedures. One of the procedure is opening the cursor, okay, and the second procedure is fetching the data from that opened cursor. So I have returned the data set from this procedure to this one. Okay, from the first to second one I have processed. I can do any processing over here. I'm just simply printing on the screen, but you can do any processing that you want, and then I'm closing the cursor. So this is the way how you can pass data set from one procedure to another procedure using reference cursor. This sending out the sys reference cursor as an out parameter is the advantage or ability of a reference cursor only. You can't do it with static cursors. Also in the previous example we saw how we conditionally open the reference cursor for a particular statement. Okay, even you can't do the same thing with static cursors. So you get these two advantages. One drawback is you can't declare reference cursor outside of a PLSQL block. Okay, you can't do it in a package environment or globally, but you can declare static cursors in a package declaration itself. But Oracle has given the sidewalk by just giving the reference cursor type to us, so there's no need for us to declare the type first. But yeah, if you still want strongly typed with a particular return statement, you can't do it. But that is all into major codings, and you will figure out ways to do it once you are comfortable with this. So I hope that you learned something new in this video, and this video was informative. Please do comments in the comment section. Please like, share and subscribe. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this. This is Kishan signing off. Thank you.